All right, hi there. We are going to do a walkthrough of how to make a number guessing game in Java, Python, and JavaScript. And I have not prepped myself for doing it, especially in JavaScript and Python. So one of the things I hope that you'll see in this video is what a programmer does when they're not really sure what to do, which is most of the time when we're programming. We're always trying to solve new and novel problems. We're always trying to use computer languages in a way we may not have done before. So we're always dependent on looking up resources to try to help us solve the problem. And for your convenience, I'm going to try to flip to a screen like this and just to start each section. So if you are interested in the Java version of this program, you can keep watching straight through and you'll see it now. And then I'll do this again for JavaScript and Python, just so that if you're thumbing over the timeline at the bottom of your video, you can skip ahead and hopefully see the screen and go right to the language you care about. So without further ado, let's make a number guessing game in Java. So the first thing I'm going to do is write out my thoughts, so my pseudocode. And commenting in Java is a / for a line comment. So we'll say first I need to generate a number for the computer. Then we're going to get a user's guess until they are correct. And let's also say how about print the number of guesses it took. All right, so generate a number. Well, if I'm going to have a number, I'm going to need a place to store it. So I'm going to create an integer, and let's call this secret number or secret num, and I need to generate it somehow. There's a couple different ways to make random numbers in Java. One way is using math.random. Now, you notice in the tooltip that pops up, it generates a double. A double is a decimal value, and we want an integer value. So we're going to have to cast it. And if I do it right now, if I just put an int in front in order to cast it to and we'll be able to print it and take a look. So let's just do a system.out.print line and parentheses, and let's do a secret number. That num. All right, sorry, my cursor looks like it's off by space. Is kind of distracting. All right, so we'll run it, and we get the number. Very exciting. I believe the number 0 should pop up. There, I got 0. And if I run it again, I'm going to get 0 again. And the reason for this is the math.random creates a random double between 0 and 0.9999999, which means I can use it to start a random number generator, but I got to scale according to what size I want. So for example, if I wanted a random number from 1 to 10, I could multiply this by 10, and then I should start getting random numbers that are a little bit bigger. Oh, actually, I wanted to put that in parentheses. It'll still be 0. So now what I want to do is take this double, multiply it by 10. So 0.743 would become 7.43. Then cast it, which is going to drop the 0.43 off, and I should get 7. Now if I run it, I should get a random number that is not 0. Let's see. Hey, there we go, 3. Now, if I want 1 through 10, I also need to add 1, because this is going to actually give me 0 through 9 as the possibilities. So there's my random number generator. I can run it a few more times to test, but I'm pretty confident that it is in good shape now. Now, the next thing I need to do is, and let's put a little message in here that says what the secret number is. Secret num space. There we go. So now when we are running it, we have that little message. So for testing purposes, always know what the secret number actually is. Okay, next, get a user's guess. All right, so I need somebody at the keyboard to type something in. I need to store it. So let's call this user guess. And I need to get something from the keyboard, so I'm going to need a scanner. I don't have it yet. Let's call it sc.nextInt. And that'll get the next int that is typed in. But sc doesn't exist yet, so I'm going to go up to my top and create my scanner. scanner sc equals a new scanner that reads from the system.in, so the console. All right, so now I have a way to get input, but I don't know that I need to give input, so I'm going to put a print statement right above it, system.out.println, enter a number, semicolon. All right, let's try testing this out. So we're going to hit run, and I should still get that random number first. Oh no, I got an error. So see, even I'm not perfect. It's saying it doesn't know what a scanner is, and that's because I forgot to do my import. So scanner is in another library that is not part of the standard set of libraries. Math is a standard library, so I don't need to import it, but scanner is not. So I'm just going to go up to the top of the program and write import, and scanner is java.util. And you can see the tooltip popping up, scanner. There we go. Whoops. Scanner. There we go. And now that should be okay. And we'll take a quick look, make sure that it does behave the way we expect. Oh no, still does not like it. Cannot find symbols. Did I spell anything wrong? Java.util.scanner. I'm pretty sure that's it. Now, one thing to do, you can also just say java.util.star, and that imports all libraries that are in that category. But it looks like it should be okay. Let's try running it one more time. We gotta wait. Java does take a little bit of time. Hey, look at that. It's working. And if I type 3, it allows me to type in, but it doesn't do any checks or anything. So let's do the next part, which is I'm supposed to guess until I am correct. So until implies while loop. I'm going to do something over and over and over again. And then until they're correct. Well, when it's correct, that's when I stop looping. So what I'm going to do now is have my while loop, which is going to say keep looping while I am not correct. So I am not correct when the user guess does not equal the secret number. And while I'm not correct, the most important thing is I need to get another guess. I have to be able to change something in this condition. Otherwise, I'm just going to get an infinite loop. So what I can do is just copy these 2 lines and paste them down here. Now, I need to remove this int declaration because I've already declared that user guess is an int. When you put that type there, it's telling Java you want to create a new variable. And this is not a new variable, I just want to change it. So maybe we'll add to this a wrong, enter a new number. All right, let's test it out. So we're going to hit run. And again, I have this print statement up here for testing purposes to make it easy. So since I know the answer is 4, I can intentionally get it wrong with 5, with 7, with 8, with 9, and then try 4 and see if it stops looping, which it does. So far, so good. Now, I do want to print a message down here, and I want to say how many guesses it took. So I'm going to say system.out.println. How about correct? It took count guesses. And a semicolon at the end. All right. Now, count doesn't exist. I have to create that. So I'm going to go back up to the top where I made the scanner, and I'm going to add another variable, int count, which equals 0 to start. That's sounds like a good default. Now, I got to keep track of how many times I've taken a guess. Well, right here, I'm going to be taking my first guess. And there's no way to finish the game without taking at least 1 guess. So rather than start my count at 0 and increment it here, I might as well just start my count at 1. And then every time I go through the loop, that means I'm taking an additional guess. So then in here, I could say count equals count plus 1. Or even easier way to write that is to use the plus equals operator, which is add to me 1. And an even easier way of writing it is to say count plus plus, which just says add 1 to me. So we add 1 so often in programming that we have that short little shortcut. Let's try this again and see if it works. Again, we got to wait a little bit because Java's a little slow. Secret number is 10. So let's try 5. Nope. 6. Nope. 7. No, now I'm going to write 10. So it should have taken me 4 guesses. Took 4 guesses. Excellent. Now, I would normally test this a lot more thoroughly, but I'm going to leave it at that because I have 2 more times that I got to solve this problem. So I'm going to start doing that now as we switch to JavaScript. I might need to shrink this down a little bit so that you can see it. All right, so this is going to be in the JavaScript section. And I'm going to try doing this program again. Again, remember, JavaScript is really a web-based language, so it's usually integrated into web pages. But we're going to be doing everything in the console, which is the way that you interact with a program to do testing. So I'm going to open up a new REPL. So let me go back to my page, and I think I had a one that I started. Let me just make a new one though. So let's get it booted up, and then we will take a look. All right. So again, I'm going to put notes down. In JavaScript, same thing. It uses 2 slashes for a line comment. So the first thing I need to do is generate a random number. Num. Then the next thing I'm going to do is get a user's guess until they are correct. And third, I'm going to print the number of guesses they took. All right, so generate a random number. Let's see how to do this. Well, first thing is if I'm making a random number, I need a place to keep it. So I'm going to create a variable called secret num, which equals, and I got to generate a random number. I don't know how to do this in JavaScript actually. So I might just try hitting random and see what happens and then print it. So console.log secret num. So, making something that's random is pretty common in most programming languages, but yep, doesn't know what that is. So let's see how to make a random number JavaScript. All right, so W3 Schools is a pretty good reference. I often go there when I'm not sure how to do something. Math.random. All right, so this is going to make a random number between 0 and 1, just like Java, where it is a decimal. Whoops. So I can use, if I just do math.random, I'm going to have a double variable. You see, that's a big decimal number. I don't want that. I really want an integer. So I want to cast it. And again, I forget how to cast in JavaScript, so let's just ask Uncle Google how to an int in JavaScript. Let's see if W3 Schools is first again. They are. So Parseint. I think that's for text, though. I don't have text. I have a decimal. So let's try this. Instead of just saying how to cast, it's going to be how to cast a double to an int in JavaScript. Converting a double. So Stack Overflow is another great resource. This is a web forum that people constantly use for posting questions and then finding the answers to questions. Oh, so it looks like you can use Parseint still. So it is not limited only to text. Let's try it out. So if I say parse int with the math at random, now what it's going to do is just make it a 0 because it's just going to truncate all those decimals off. So what I can do is if I want a number between 1 and 10, I can multiply by 10. So now if I have 0.743, it becomes 7.43. The 0.43 gets knocked off, but the 7 stays. Well, let's run it again and see if that worked. Oh, no, I'm still getting 0. Oh, there we go. There's a 6, 7. So the funny thing is I got a 0 because 0 is still a possible number. but a 10 is actually impossible. I'm never going to get a 10 doing this because the 0 is inclusive, but the 1 for the random number generator is exclusive. So a way around that then is to just add 1 to this range. So plus 1. So now it's going to get a random number from the 0 to 9, and then add 1 to it, it becomes a random number 1 to 10. So now if I hit this enough times, I should randomly get a 10 at some point. I hope. There we go. Okay, so it looks like it's working. So I got my secret number. I'm able to log it. Now I need to get a user's guess. So I need another variable, user guess equals, and we need to get it from the screen. So that's a prompt. Enter a number. And then let's just do a quick comparison to say if the user guess equals 2 equal sign to compare the secret num, then we'll print out console.log, print out correct. And if we are incorrect, we'll just print out incorrect. Copy that. And incorrect. All right, so now let's test it. And again, we're printing the secret number, so we know what the answer is. So the answer is 7. Let's do 8, and it should say incorrect. Look at that. Beautiful. Let's try it again. 8. Now I'm going to type 8, and it should say correct. Beautiful. All right, so it passed our test. We tested both cases, and it looks like it's working. So what we're not really doing an if statement, though. It says get a user's guess until they are correct. That word until tells you while loop. So we can just change this if to a while, except we don't want to say while I'm correct. I want to say while I'm incorrect. So we're going to change it equals to a not equals. And then what we can do in here is update. So if I'm going to keep guessing, that means that I just take this line here, except for var, because I'm not declaring the variable again, and I'm going to put it in here. And let's just change the prompt up so that we know that we are in the loop. Wrong. Enter let's say new number, let's say. All right, so if we run this, enter a number, the answer is 5. So if I type 6, wrong, enter a new number, 7, 8, 9. How about 5? Look at that. Looks like it's working. Now the next thing we need to do is print the number of times or the number of guesses that we took. So if I go down to the bottom, I'm going to console.log in order to print. And let's say it took you count number of guesses. All right. Now, the problem is we don't have a count yet. We got to create that. So let's go all the way up to the top of the program. We'll make a variable called count right here. And let's set it equal to 0. But we got to think about that. Anytime we're initializing an int or something that we're counting with, we want to be really mindful of off by 1 errors. So by default, no matter what, I need to guess at least 1 time. And then every time in this loop, my count goes up. So if I said count plus plus here, that would increase count by 1. And if I run it, let's see, 7, 8, 9, and I'm going to do 6. So it'll be 4 total guesses. It only says 3 guesses because we didn't account for this guess right here. So an easy fix is just to make our count initialize to 1. So we're counting that first guess right off the bat. If I get it on the first time, it took me 1 guess. If it takes me a few, it looks like it's still counting correctly. All right, there we go. We have done this again with JavaScript. Let's do it one more time, but this time we are going to use Python. So now we're going to switch to Python language. One thing that's going to be a little different with Python when we do this program again that was a little simpler for Java and JavaScript is that Python has dynamic typing, which means when the input comes in from the user, it is not going to read it as a number. It's going to read it as text. So we're going to have to do a little bit of casting there with the input in order to make sure it works. But let's go ahead and we'll start a new REPL. And this time we will do a Python program. So I'll make a new one. All right. I'll wait for it to load up. All right, so again, let's start with comments. And in Python, our comments are start with a number sign or hashtag for the youth out there. So we are going to start by get a random number. Then we are going to have our player user guesses until they are correct. And then print the number of guesses it took. All right. Now, Python, we do not need to declare a variable with any type. So I'm just going to say secret number equals. And then we got to randomly generate a secret number. I don't know how to randomly generate something in Python. So I'm going to start by just seeing if the word random pops up anywhere. I know in Java and JavaScript, it starts with a math library. That doesn't seem to be the case. So when in doubt, go to Uncle Google. How to generate a random number in Python. All right, let's see. You can see I was actually clicking around earlier looking for this. Let's go to a different source. Maybe I'll get a different answer. So here's W3 Schools is, again, usually pretty good for some basic stuff. So there is a from NumPy import random. So it looks like there's a random or NumPy, not NumPy. It looks like there is a random library that we can import and then generate a random int. Let's try using that. So first thing I do is put my import line at the top. So from NumPy, import random. And now it looks like I can say random dot rand int with a capital I believe. And let's say up to 10. All right, and then I just want to print that out. So let's just make sure that it worked. So secret num and try running it. Oh no, it doesn't like that. Let's see what happens. There's no trim rand int. Maybe it is a lowercase I. Let's see. Yep, lowercase I. So a lot of times, if it looks like you've done something that's all right, it may just be as little as a capital letter or lowercase letter. So that's giving me a 0. That's a 6. All right, so it looks like I'm getting random numbers. One thing that you want to be concerned about, though, is off by 1. So if I really want the number range 1 through 10, I'm not going to get it with this. This is actually going to give me the numbers 0 through 9. So I'm going to just take that answer and add 1 to it. So if I throw a 1 in now, I got my range 1 through 10, and I can print that out. If I do it randomly enough times, I should end up getting a 10 to pop up. Let's see, there's a 7. I haven't seen any zeros, and there's my 10. All right, so that looks like it's working. Now what we're going to do is make sure that the user can put some input in, and we'll check if they're correct. So we're going to make a new variable. Let's call this user guess equals, and in Python I believe it's input, and you put the prompt in there. So how about enter a number, and then let's just do a quick test to make sure that it worked. So if user guess equals, so 2 equal signs for comparison, secret num, then we're going to say, oh, actually, there's no parentheses in Python. And then to be in the if state, we just tab over 1. So if it's correct, we'll print correct. And let's put an else in here and print incorrect. All right. So let's give this a quick test. Oh, and I need colon there as well, I believe. All right, so the secret number is 5. Let's type a 6. It should say incorrect, and I'm incorrect. Lovely. Now let's test it, make sure it works when I'm correct. 9, and I type 9, and I get incorrect. Right, so this is the problem I was alluding to earlier. When we take input in Python, by default, it treats it like text. So I didn't type in the number 9, I typed in the letter 9. And a letter and a number are not the same thing. Now, we can fix this pretty easily with casting. So we can just write int here, and that says convert this thing in parentheses to an integer. Now when we run it, and I type in 3, it knows I'm actually looking for a 3, and it's going to spell correct, or say correct, because I have a typo there as well. But since it was text, didn't ruin my program. All right, now that allows us to check input, but we didn't do this until their correct part. For that, we need a loop. So what we can do is, instead of having an if statement, have a while statement. And instead of checking if they are correct, check if they're not correct. And if they're not correct, we can just take this input again. So while they are wrong, get another input. And let's just change this message up a little bit so it looks different. Wrong, enter a new number. All right, so let's try running this now. All right, 2. Let's go with 6. Wrong, enter number 7, 8, 9. So you see it's letting me loop. Now when I put in a 2, it terminates the loop. It gets me out of there. So that takes care of the looping part. We still need to do this last piece. Keep track of how many guesses it took. So down at the end, I want to say print. It took count guesses. All right, so we want this to count. In order to count, I wonder if I'm getting error here. Oh, it's saying counts undefined. So we haven't defined that variable yet. So let's maybe go up to the top and create a count, which equals 0 to begin with. And then every time we are in this loop, we're going to count again. So count plus plus. Plus plus means increase this thing by 1. Is it not like that? Is that not an operator in Python? Okay, let me see. Increment in Python. How do you increment in Python? Let's see. Does not have the unary increment. All right, so these are really great operators that we use in most programming languages, but Python does not have it. So instead of count plus plus, we're going to say count plus equals 1. That says add to myself the number 1. Great, let's test it. All right, so 9, and we'll just make sure that it still loops. So if I, oops, so I'm getting the wrong answer, and I keep guessing and guessing and guessing. Oops, I hit error. I hit enter without touching a number. So that was my fault, not the computer's. Let's do 7. So we're just going to put in a whole bunch of guesses, and then let's get it correct. Took 12 guesses. Yay, it looks like it works. Let's test it again. I wonder what happens if I get it right the first time. Well, I got it right, but it tells me I took 0 guesses. So I am suffering from what are called off by 1 errors. We initialized count at 0, and we started counting, or we added to it every time I made a new guess, but we forgot to account for this original guess right here. So I can correct that by just making this initialize to 1. And now when I run, let's see, enter number 2, great, 1 guess. All right, so that concludes our Java, JavaScript, and Python run through of a simple, basic number guessing game. Bye now.